Oh, shoot, one second. Just one second. Ready to go? Okay. Good afternoon, Sangha. We're excited to see you for another day. Just want to have some announcements before we get started. So as a reminder, every Thursday at 5:45, we will have our novena. So we'll have that this evening. You can send in your prayer request to prayer@heartwoodrefuge.org. So if you'd like us to pray for you or a loved one, whether here or departed today, you still have time to send that in. And of course, we do this weekly. Also, please share, like, and follow us on social media to help us spread the Dharma. Your dollar donations are still welcome as they allow us to continue towards retiring our mortgage debt. So we're so grateful and thank you for that. As we shared on Tuesday, there are many, many ways that you can give to us here or to us collectively at Heartwood. So we've talked a lot about our Amazon wish list, which is amazing. So that's one way. You can also go to the About tab and go to Giving on our website, and it has information about funding for general funds. We also have a fund for our amazing nuns here at Heartwood that you might want to give to, and also social projects. So take a look at that and see what ways you'd be able to give. And that's monetarily, and there's always ways that you can give of your time and energy as well. So we thank you for all your grateful generosity. Friday fun night. So yes, we're going to have a fun night, an Untitled show on February 26th that we're really excited about. It'll start at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're excited to see what ways you may think you're untalented, or maybe there's some burgeoning hobbies or talents that you haven't shared with anyone that you'd like to share within a Sangha who will be here to support you all the way through that. So it is free, but you will have to register. So you can go to our website and there is a registration link. So that will be under events and retreats, things that we have going on here. Also, my apologies, on Tuesday I shared that there will be a retreat this weekend that Venerable will be leading, and that information is on our website. It's actually being hosted through the Sacramento Buddhist Meditation Society. So if you're interested in the retreat that she'll be offering this Saturday, that's February 20th, you can go to the Sacramento Buddhist Meditation Society, and that will give you the information about that. And then the last thing I wanted to share is, I believe it's March 8th, we'll be having the women's, let me go to that really quickly. Okay. Yes, on March 8th, the 20th Outstanding Women in Buddhism Award Ceremony. So that will be happening, and we have, since it's going to be women all over the world, we're celebrating in conjunction with the United Nations International Women's Day. If you're interested in doing that, you can go to our website and register. If you're on the East Coast, the time will be 9 a.m., and those who might be on the West Coast, it'll be 6 a.m., but you can find more on our website about that event on March 8th. All right, thank you so much.
Sorry.
Good afternoon, everybody. You know, everything that I talk about is not just something that we all continually talk about. Sometimes I talk about it so that you don't necessarily have to talk about it. You can just think about it, because the transformation occurs from within. It changes our view and our picturing. For instance, as I was leaving to come up here, the thing about being old, you know, they say once an adult, twice a child. It's so true. Of all of my kids, every time we were ready to go out the door, they'd, wait, I gotta go to the bathroom, you know, and it's like all the time. And as you age, you start to realize in that last bit of moments of moving around, suddenly you have to go to the bathroom. Now, the reason why I say this is because, and I have my stuff timed out, nothing before it's time. And if it takes 5 minutes to get to the Dharma hall, that's all you allow. You use the rest of that time doing something else. But then something comes in and throws you an additional 5 minutes behind. But the reason I bring this up is because in our culture, there is such a stigma attached to aging. And we were brought up with a certain view of aging and still have it today, now. And so we can't seize the essence of this time and cannot offer the wisdom that's really resident in us because we really haven't been given permission to. And so I'd like to give you permission to use your wisdom and to guide others, to muse, to provide insight. I mean, nobody gets out of this alive, and better later than sooner. We say, of course, we don't want to go too quickly, but we all, die to get out of this reality. And so we have to find a way to live in it resourcefully, where to look, how to use what we are experiencing. I watched my parents, and I just watched them. I did not experience what they experienced. I am now. So now I'm watching my experience, and I see so much wisdom in it. I see so much relief in it. I see so much just naturalness, so much ordinariness in it. And this is the liberating part. This is how we get out before we get out, so that there should be a growing freedom emerging in your life as you age, if you age with wisdom. Deep and I were talking today, and as I'm winding down my time for talking is wrapping up, and so many times over the years I was asked by several publishers to pen a book, and I'm like, I can't write. I have nothing to say in writing. I just sit here and it comes up spontaneously and I talk. So that's what I do. And but lately so many things have been coming up for me. And today I was thinking, and I was talking to Pandadeep, and I said, Pandadeep, because I was reading the Bible this morning, and I said, I'm gonna write a book for Buddhist Bible lovers, and it's just expounding on the book of Psalms, the Ecclesiastes, and Proverbs. There you find the joy, the peace, and the wisdom of the Bodhi mind. It's right there. Just those 3 books. I can't speak for everything in there, but those 3 teach one how to live in this world in such a way that everything else they can find a way to fit in a way to look at something, a way to understand something, a way to use something, a way to skillfully or gracefully discard something. It's enough. And then I do part 2. And in part 2, there's which is the New Testament, divorced from the Old Testament, because it's 2 different teachings actually. But when you look at them, it's another face of what is true. And I would do a part 2 that would just take Jesus' words and discuss the other books of the Bible that were actually letters written to groups that had formed around the Christian message. So if you read Corinthians or you read Galatians, it was not a holy book that was doinked down on people. It was a response to questions that those communities had, those Christian communities had, and because they basically had no teacher, or they had a young, inexperienced teacher, or, they were asking their elder in the tradition that was forming, what's the best way to handle this situation here? How should one think about something there? And if you understood the context in which the letter was written, then you understand something about wisdom unfolding. And instead of this being a holy rule, this was advice to the community where a mother and a son had become lovers. This was advice to a community, so it was around issues that were arising in the Sangha. Now, when we study the Dharma, we also sort of take it like an edict, but what we have to recognize is that when the Buddha was talking, then we're going to get into today's thing, but when the Buddha was talking, he had surveyed them. He wasn't just blah blahing, but he understood something about the minds, the thoughts, the impulses of the particular people in front of him, and he spoke to that. Now these have been saved and collected into volumes that we call the canon, but yet they were responses to what was needful to the minds that were present. Now we have that same mind in us in different ways, to different degrees, in different circumstances, and we have to eke out of that the wisdom of how to apply, how to modify so it fits our situation, or how to look at it and see that this is the same, just in a different place, just in a different time, just different people, and instead of an elephant, they're talking about a car. Instead, but this is the wisdom that comes when one is consistently lathering themselves with the soap of the Dharma for cleansing. And so if you read sacred texts in this way, without for the wisdom that can be gleaned from them, then you will get something out of this, because wisdom seeks its own, and wisdom seeks its own level. And so much there is a piercing of the veil of ignorance the more one continually scrubs themselves or washes themselves with the water of the words of deep practitioners, those who have penetrated and see and understand a deeper reality. So as I was reading today, I just substituted everywhere it said God. I either substituted it for wisdom, I substituted it for the word Dharma, I substituted it for the word goodness, or I substituted it, there was another, for the word karma, So when it would say, like, if you do wickedly or you do justly, God judges them both. And I could just see there's karma, cause, and condition. I didn't, and I was no longer offended. Oh, I never was really offended. But I wanted to understand more. I wanted to know more. I wanted, because and that was what kept me on an inquiry, even though I'm, so unlike most Buddhists, I didn't have a problem with Christianity in the way that most do. Like, I don't believe it because they were stuck on a concept of a God who judges everybody. I never felt that way because I never felt judged. But I had a direct experience and made me feel an ultimate love, and I wondered, how do I have that same kind, and that was the search. So wherever you are, and I'm speaking because I'm speaking from my most foundational, long-running tradition, whose practices I put into play, and I know them the best. I know that when I thought this way, it changed me from being a hater, to being compassionate and loving. When I thought this way, it made me able. I'm always talking about overlooking a fault and tolerating a slight, because they're one of the two greatest practices we can do to get out of ourselves. And I found that also in the Bible. Even if when I was like, slay him, God, in my own mind, then I'd read something that says that's the wrong way to think about him. You should pity the fool, something like that. And so I say to you that a lot of things that are deeply in us, that when we go to something else, we don't have to clear the whole table. It's like the Thanksgiving dinner, and you might have a turkey at the center of the table, but a turkey with nothing else on it is pretty bland too. And if you add something, you don't necessarily have to get rid of the turkey. So do with that what you will, for whoever's thinking about that. I want to give you next week's assignment before we start last week's, because I think we'll probably run out of time. So next week's assignment is, we're always thinking and looking at the circumstances around us that cause us to have to make decisions about things, and we form opinions to, in the beginning, we may be really looking to try to find out what is it that I should do in this situation. But once we decide, and that decision normally leans toward what would make us more comfortable and away from whatever our aversion is to that situation, then we use our rationale to justify the decision. That's just how human beings do. And so I'd like for you to really think, and maybe everybody, maybe I was going to say think of one, but I'll say think of two. One that you can share, and maybe there's one that maybe you don't feel that comfortable sharing, but I want you to think about it and to share that you did really think about it. But I think all of us can find, can recall, can take this time to reflect upon two decisions that we have made, or hopefully decisions that we are making, that we stop in our tracks and we consider, is this the justification for making the change that would make me feel better? And notice how, if it is really true for you, the making of this decision was based on what I thought would be better in light of what you're doing, or how you are, or how something is out there, as opposed to me making that decision. Truly, I can see that it was a justification for what I want, or to get rid of something that in the moment I don't want, or that's not comfortable. And if you press through this and learn how to do it, I'll tell you, there will not be an occasion, or there will be less of an occasion for you to judge things from the outside, or for you to consider things somebody else's fault. And that's part of the process in us taking full responsibility for our lives. And part of taking full responsibility for our lives is acknowledging that whatever happens, we always say, well, you know, I'm responsible for my response to it. And that is true, that we are responsible for our response to it. But that's just a catchy phrase, you know, because we don't go all around thinking all the time we're responsible for our responses, so we wouldn't have any conflicts. You know, we look and see, this is what this is what I think needs to be done, and I'm okay with that. But we're not okay with things, you know, and we're constantly trying to justify or explain away, you know, the decisions that we make, and the disputes or the disgruntledness or the dissatisfaction, you know, the unhappiness, the sorrow, the sadness for external things that, you know, and they're just occurring due to cause and condition, or part of which is everything has a natural expiration date depending upon what is happening every day with that thing, including us as a thing. So that's a broad picture, and I'd like to just kind of leave it like that, so that there's some room for something to come up in your own mind that's a little bit more specific, because this is learning how to investigate one's own mind and how to see clearly how we make our decisions and how we make our choices in life, and hopefully what will come out of this is that we'll make better choices. When we make a choice, we'll keep we can keep to it when it feels uncomfortable and pierce, or if we make a change, know honestly and definitely why we're making the change, and we don't have to make up a story around it. And it's a good exercise for really coming to know oneself, and to be able to more at peace with ourselves, with the decisions that we make, and less inclined to put the need for it, or to see it as a remedy towards what somebody else has done, or not done, or said or not said, or wherever I am. So, and hopefully at the end of this, one can see that we ourselves are the cause of our own dissatisfaction. And we live with that internal dissatisfaction, if I am unhappy with someone or something, it certainly doesn't bother the something, and it probably doesn't bother the someone. It only bothers me, and and in that bothered state, I just spray all over the place everywhere I go and everywhere I walk. And then I wonder what's wrong with folk. So this is the assignment. Is anybody not clear about that? I sort of like tried to ramble and go in many different places to kind of give you an idea of where to go with this inquiry. So if anyone is still not clear, you can ask, you can pose a question and the reason I ask for two is because one, you may not feel like you could openly share. You might think you can until you start. And when you start, it's like, I'm too exposed. And then you start revamping the story even while you're telling it, So I won't put you on the spot for that. But something really important in your life. So you got to look at, choices you're making about things, ways that you're looking at things, ways that you're looking at people, ways that you're engaging with life. But if you ask yourself the question, I tell you, the mind is a great supporter at trying to figure out things. It really is. So if you ask the question, it'll bring you up, scenario after scenario, person after person. Pick one or pick two and come back prepared to share the one that you can openly share without any sense of shame, the one you're ready to share because it may help somebody. Thank you so much. Okay, so who did their homework last week? Who remembers what it was? Oh, Regina. Okay, so Regina, could you tell us what it was?
Okay, we were supposed to read I'm sorry.
Hold on a second, Regina. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. How about I put it in?
Is everyone hearing Regina break out, or is it just on our end?
Can you all hear Regina fine?
It's breaking out over there as well. Okay.
I'm
No,
getting an
I
echo.
Okay. Were you getting one with me?
No.
Were you clear with me? Okay.
She says path of purification.
Path of purification. First of all, who Googled? Okay. In page 130. Okay, so that's what we did in class. And what was the actual assignment for this week?
Oh.
Somebody get my phone. I have it.
We'll see it.
Okay, so it was on the meditation subject and going through the different personality types. That was part of it. But my other there was another question. Hold on, I'll show you. Okay, so you're supposed to notice your mind and how your mind inclines and share something good or not good, observation, with the observation of studying one's own mind. Becoming the Dharma in our actions, in our speech, and in our and in our thoughts with an idea of one's personality traits. So like, what's the dangers, what's the strong points, and investigating that to see whether that is true for you, and discovering something about yourself then. The extremes of both sides of a personality type, the strengths and the dangers, and asking, what is this, rather than just judging something when it came up. So it's a way of being kinder to ourselves, but yet really looking, so that discrimination can grow, but judgment will diminish. So the floor is open for sharing.
Hi.
Hi, Dina.
So the magic. Yeah, I'm never here. That 8 ball was wrong for weather. So they called today. I recognized last week when I was looking at my mind that the first thing we do is just try and calm this book. And then I recognize the things that seem pretty are the Heart Sutra and a lot of metta. And for me, that it's helped me. Can you hear me or? Mm-mm. Okay. I recognize that it's helped me move past the slight that I feel within myself from others. And I'm more inclined to be able to handle something that would have felt like a judgment and go back to the idea of not selfing and to just hold that person in compassion. And that it's becoming more of my inclination to be able to be in the present moment versus run away from everything and take it upon myself to make everything else okay and right.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to ask you 2 questions. Number 1 is, you said it has helped me. And my question is, when it has helped me to see this or understand this, I think I have fully digested it. So that means that there's really been a definite breakthrough and shifting in how I hold something. But if I hold it as it is helping me, I know I'm not finished. So the next week I don't have the same thing. The month later I don't have the same conversation. When something is done, it's done. We don't just keep baking it. But if it's baked, we take it out and we eat it. But if it's not yet done, we have to, and when we take it out the oven, we have to put it back in, bake it for 10 more minutes. Bake it, other than that cake that I tried to bake and I mixed the ingredients wrong and it never did become a cake. It just became a pudding, and finally we just put it in a bowl and we ate the cake as pudding. And that's how we do in our practice. When we recognize something, we think, oh, now I have overcome this. But we haven't stayed with it long enough because it was a small insight, or what the Buddha calls a dim insight, a dim light. But when we stay with it, even after we think, by gosh, I've got it, we find that light gets brighter and brighter and brighter. And so if we think in terms of it is helping me, then I have a place to go continually. Instead of taking the next step, I'll stay with that until there is a full release in that regard. And it's wonderful. And we know when we have it too, because when we have it, we're fully accountable to ourselves, and we no longer feel, even down, when I say, we do a quick jump from I didn't understand, now I understand, and I don't have to feel so bad about myself. I feel compassion for them for thinking the way they think, and that's good when there has been the full being with and overcoming, giving others the credit for how I feel. When I fully take on how I feel, I no longer give you the credit, good credit or bad credit for it. That's what I'm saying. And so then I no longer have to apply or give you compassion because of the way you think. The compassion is naturally arising. It really doesn't even have that much to do with me. There's a true compassion that rises, and not and I hope I'm saying this in the way you get it. Usually when we're offering compassion to others for something, it's us giving them something, and that means we haven't finished doing our work. Because when we finish doing our work with that issue or that matter, then it becomes a non-thing. So me having to actually even offer, and compassion upon someone is because I haven't finished what I need to do with that. And that's how when we talk about the cooling of things, that's the cooling. When we think of non-attachment, or we think of detachment, and the Buddha called it the cooling of things, it's in that vein that something becomes so neutralized it doesn't touch us. Like shooting an arrow and the arrow doesn't penetrate, and now that's where a real freedom is starting to take off. So thank you so much for your comment. Yeah. I remember one time I took a friend to my mother's house, and my mother had this habit of just saying things to people, and now I understand that it was a cruel streak, but she had no training for how to overcome it or how to uproot it, and she would always speak and act out of her pain. And I took a girlfriend over one day, and it was a holiday, and we were like just so tired of the family gatherings. Everybody dreaded going, but we had to show up, and within 30 minutes there'd be arguments between each other, and everybody'd go away mad or sad because they couldn't keep the rest of the family together. I'm like, why do we do this? Let's just not do it. And it was because it's a tradition. You have to do it. So I showed up at one of the last ones, and I was the only one that showed up. Everybody like stopped by for a few minutes before and said, well, we're having Thanksgiving dinner at home, Mom, but here we bought something to go on the table. But it ended up nobody was there but me. And I came and I brought a friend with me. So my mother had bought like champagne and wine and some other things. And it was just us, the three of us. So we ended up having dinner, and I comforted her, and I'm like, Mom, everybody's got their own children, their own family. Now they're having a tradition, but everybody will stop and see you, and all those kinds of nice things that you should say to comfort someone who had been cooking all day, planning for this, and everybody was too chicken to say they weren't coming, just didn't show up or stop by early, and I think a couple came late. So I'm there, And my friend's there, and my friend has a glass of wine, and she has another, and I think she might have even had a third glass, but it was like 10 bottles, because we have a big family, and it was nobody but us. I don't drink, and my mother doesn't drink, and didn't drink. And so my friend did have a few glasses, and my mother turns to her and says, well, look, Lush, you think I bought that all for you? Instead of her being happy that somebody was there and to have fellowship with her. And I said, and my friend, it was like just rolled right off her back, And I said, did you hear what she just said to you? And I said, are you okay with that? She said, what? She said, she just disrespected you and called you a lush. She said, well, just because she called me, that doesn't make me one. That's in her mind. This is my usual, and it's okay. I said, get your coat. We're leaving. And we left. My mother's, I'm sorry. I said, I don't want to even talk to you right now. And so we leave, and we get outside, and she said, I'm sorry. Tell me what I did wrong. My friend was saying, tell me what I said wrong that made you make us leave. And she was so liberated in a certain way to not take on somebody else's slight and disrespect. And I marveled at it at the time. I said, how do I get that kind of mind? Because you don't only have to look at me, a certain way, and I'm gonna be on you. So how do I get that kind of mind? That she could say that to her, and then she says, and then my friend says, I'm sorry. What kind of mind is that? But I wanted that kind of freedom, that kind of mental freedom. You see, that internal freedom. And so I'm glad that I found the Dharma, because it points us to that if we will take it up and take it to heart. But this is where it starts requiring work, not just the Paul parroting back of the sutras, but it requires actually putting it into practice, in the moment when a situation calls for it. And yeah. Thank you. Is there someone else?
Yeah.
Yes, Marie.
So one of the things that I've been discovering, I'm getting a nasty echo again.
Okay, well, we don't hear it, only you, so you can just, if you can stay with your thought. You getting it?
Yeah. It's hard to talk with the echo. We did get rid of it when Dina was talking. Oh, there we go. Okay, is it better? Oh, yes. Okay. All right. And so one of the things that I've been looking at is my tendency to spin out a story when something happens or someone says something. And before I haven't checked it out with them or anything, my mind has got this whole story spun out about what they meant. And now I'm bad because da-da-da-da. And watching that tendency, and it's becoming very clear if I look directly. Sometimes it's appropriate to just check it out, ask a clarifying question. And God, such a large percent of the time, I was wrong. It was my conditioning that overlaid the whole situation, and my assumption was dead wrong. Other times when it's either something I can't check out or something that wouldn't be appropriate for me to check out, I can ask myself, and this is new for me, but I'm able to ask the question, do you know that to be true? And no, how could I possibly know what another is thinking or meaning when they weren't clear about that, or where I couldn't check it out? And so asking myself another question of, if you're just spinning out a story, could you allow it to be a different story where there wasn't meanness intended? If I can't check it out, that's a healthier story. If I'm going to have a story, that's a healthier story for me to have if I have a choice what I'm spinning out. But then, so that's a surface awakening up here. But then right in this nice, neat little funnel of energetic comes the, do you see, Maureen, how there's constant Maureening going on below the surface here? And to just breathe into that and allow, just let it go. There's a whole level of peace below my story spinning, whether I'm spinning a painful story or whether I'm spinning a more pleasant story. So this is new, and working with that, looking below that tendency to form these assumptions and spin out a story. That's been what's been coming up for me this week. Thank you.
Back when I was a child, we had record players, a turntable, and so you have the needle and it's spinning, but the closer you get to the center, the less there is the going around and around and around. And that's why concentration practice is so important. Not just noting what is coming up, but to be able to take a thought, to take a concept, to take a dharmic assumption and to hold it in the face of something that is happening. The development of concentration allows us to be able to do that, so that we move from this the superficial, and from the surface down to the deep critical first, deep critical thinking, and then even beyond that to just abiding and allowing something to be whatever it may be. And I don't even really have to know. I don't really have to know what that is. So you said how the tendency of the mind to spin out a story, and based on what I think about myself, and I might add, or what I think, an opinion I have formed about how another thinks. But if we could recognize that everybody is doing this same thing, everybody's spinning out a story, because that's the human, unenlightened tendency to spin out a story based on what I think about myself or what I think about you or what I think I know about you. So we're constantly spinning these stories, and the mind has gotten so good at it, and it's just part of our how we're made to make things easier for us, so that the mind just skips over some facts. The hearing faculty skips over some listening, and it crafts a story for us. It's just like, you don't have to waste your time with this. I'll tell you what's happening. And it goes and pulls up some memories and presto, and it says, this is what that is. And that's one reason why the Buddha helps us to break down the different consciousnesses, if you will. We put them all back together because they are all jumbled up in the final analysis. But he helps us to separate them, like from what we see or what we hear, what and how those 5 bases create a 6th base that's a composite of those 5 and crafts a story for us. And to recognize that this is the way the human being functions and works. And now we have sciences that now explain all of this really well. But he just explained in a way lay people can understand, because they can look at their lives and they can think about their deepest thoughts or their deepest feelings, and they can see it. But for those who need, scientific verification, because your lived experience is not enough for you, then, now you can research all this in the fields of neuroplasticity and neuro this and neuro that, and the brain that's in your gut, and all of these kinds of things, that science is discovering, that the Buddha talked about in these very simple, basic ways. But if we could remember that in our not fully enlightened state, we all spin out stories. That's our tendency, based on what we think about ourselves and based on what we think about others. And we know for ourselves that because we do this, and we do this not with, most times, not with any definite intention to harm, but there was a protective tendency, and an inability to sit with discomfort that helps us, or that leaves us helpless to our thoughts and our feelings, even when we know that they're not necessarily true. And a lot of times when we know it's definitely not true, but like we just still feel hurt. And so that, just going back to saying these thoughts and that I have, maybe what that person said is a reflection of the thoughts and feelings that they have that are erroneous as well. And so I won't let this moment define our relationship. It's just one moment of many moments. We find a way to speak to our own selves, to speak to our own hearts. That's what mastery is all about. We can't master another. We can only master ourselves. So thank you so much for sharing. I hear in every comment, I find me. I find me. And it's in this way we see our commonality. That's one way we see our commonality, yeah. And see, that sound like, I'm only human after all. Don't put your blame on me.
I would like to share. Hi. So I have been paying attention to how I react differently, paying attention differently. So I am in this book club. I'm the coordinator of it, and I'm the one who organized and everything. And all the participants are teachers, Dharma teachers. And so I sent a little summary of our first meeting with all the information, and I got an email from one of the teachers just asking me what if I'm going to do something else. And I for some reason it really bothered me, and it took me 2 days to answer, because every time I read the email or I think about it, it makes me angry. And I realized that I wanted some acknowledgement. There's no like thank you or an acknowledgement of what I did. And I had such an expectation of that. And also I felt like my mind was telling me that I was being micromanaging, and I was very comfortable with that. And I was thinking, why didn't I just answer yes? She asked a question, and if I had said yes and dropped it, it would have made me feel much more comfortable. But it took me all this time to let it go, because I had expectation and some judgment and not understanding. I don't know what was, why the person asked me to do something else. And then I sent the message today, and I said, yes, I'm going to be the person sending the Zoom link. And I said, why? And then the person said, I'm sorry, I forgot, and all that. And it was much simpler than what I thought. But it took me all this time to realize how sometimes I have a lot of expectation. I put expectations, on other people. And so that was the biggest observation that I had this week.
And everything that we're saying, when we think about it, we can apply it to ourselves, and we can apply it to others and see that they are just like us, And that's what helps us uproot the condemning mind, when we start to see that we're like all in this soup together and all in our various stages of waking up. We should probably stop using that word waking up, because I'm not sure we really know what it means. But if we can just see ourselves, improving, getting better, becoming happier, more content, maybe we need to go to these kinds of words instead of awake, enlightened, etc., etc., etc. And how we can have expectations and don't even realize that we are concretizing something into an expectation, because if we were to think consciously of it, we would know not to set up, even an expectation. But because these things happen on an unconscious level, and somehow through habitual, the ways that some things present themselves habitually. For instance, I get very good care here, and there was a time when everybody's been somewhere, been to a retreat center or been somewhere, and they would always make sure that the speaker had a glass of water or something like that. And I said, but I've been here 20 years and nobody even puts a glass of water on the table or something like that. But now, I always have water. I have water, I have a vitamin, I have something if my stomach is upset. I have a medicine cabinet over here. I have a pillow in my chair. I have a pad under the floor for my feet in case my feet are cold. And I'm like, this is just way too much, I'm always saying, no, that's all right. No, that's not, that's enough. Or don't do this. Or shall I bring you some food, Venerable? And I'm like, no, I can get my own food, or something like that. Cause it's really nice when they bring it. And but after they brought it and I ate it, I rinse my dish, but somebody said, can I take your plate away? And now I'm finished. I don't say that, but I will, I'll be eating in my room and I'll leave my dishes right there. Somebody said to me yesterday, because we've been having this talk about that started with Joe and the cleaning the kitchen and washing the dishes, right? And I'm just telling you how to work on yourself now. You can't take yourself too seriously is what I'm saying. And so and I said I was pricked in my conscience because I leave my dishes in the sink for Kay to wash, because that's her thing. She likes the kitchen, and she's always like, what you in the kitchen doing now? Oh, there's something on the counter. oh, I saw some crumbs over there. I go, okay, and so I've been washing my dishes. And so Sister Clear Grace and Sister Sectionist last night said something like, we're going to call Kay and tell her to keep you over there where you wash your dishes after you eat. And but that's how, so it's very easy for us to form, for the mind to assist us in forming an expectation. That's what I'm saying. That's why you have to, you see what she put up there? That's why you have to watch your mind. And that's how you have to autocorrect it. If you don't, somebody else will correct you. and you can just take it, for that. Because I tell you the truth, the other day Rachel brought me a meal and I ate it, and then I was getting ready to leave and I looked right at the plate and I'm like, oh, I'm tired, and I don't want to take this down to the kitchen and leave something dirty in the kitchen. I don't want to leave it up here because, we have 1,000 holes in this big old house. I don't want any mice up in my room. And I'm saying the same thing to people about leaving dishes, and I still left that plate. But now that Sister Clear Grace made that joke, it was a joke, right? I will.
Venerable said she was moving back upstairs, and I said, when you move back upstairs, you can't be leaving dishes. So you gotta stay over there.
And so that it's that easy that we can see something true in something. You see what I mean? And we don't have to get upset with somebody. Like I say, if the shoe fits, and it's a way that if we could receive it, and not think somebody was trying to out us or correct us or hurt our feelings or what. But I know my heart dwells safely with her, and so I can just listen to what she's saying and I can see if there's anything in there for me, and if not, I say, no, I think you're wrong, and I can just say that, and so this is how the Sangha comes closer together and how we rub until we become one solid structure. And if we don't do this, my friends, I tell you what happens is we end up being in places where we're shut down, places where there's false humility, places where there's just the smile that doesn't go past the lips, places where we're not true and we're not genuine and we're not honest with others. That makes us then be dishonest to ourselves, and we end up with just something that appears, to be good, but that is not good. So this becoming genuine it's really important, but it takes mature people. It takes people who are willing to do their work. But you'll find more and more joy in it as you do it. It becomes the way of life for us, and we'll become less attached to it as life being a way of defining me, and concretizing me and my thoughts and propping me up, and just find ourselves like free floating through life. Has a taste of liberation in every situation and circumstance that we encounter. That's what I mean. Yeah. Thank you, Maureen. Does anyone in the room want to share? Brian?
I'll share.
Yes, Travis.
Can y'all hear me all right? Yes? Okay. Well, first I want to say, you aren't lying when you say watching the mind is a full-time job. Especially this past week, something that I noticed that came up a lot was the minds want to be seen and acknowledged and appreciated. And what I started to do after seeing the mind run these stories about that, if I would let it go and I would attach to it and I would believe it, the stories would start. And eventually I would catch it and bring it back home. I go, okay, I see that this may or may not be true, but I see that this is what the mind is saying to me. And so what I started doing is situations that I saw the mind would spin out these stories in, when I would get ready to go into them, I'd go into it ready to watch. Because I'm like, I know how you are. So now this time, I'm going to go in literally watching you. And it would be amazing because the same thing would happen, but it wouldn't go as far, right? It would sometimes stop at just the feeling of it without the mind having to spin out. Sometimes maybe the mind would say a word or two and I'd be like, let's bring it back. And so it was interesting to watch because the mind is pretty consistent in that way. It has its ways that it likes to show up and things that it likes and dislikes, and you know, a situation may look different, but there's not many new things appearing. And so I had a lot of great experiences where I watched the mind and prepared myself to watch the mind even because of how consistent it was.
Wow, that's fantastic. So he was talking about how the mind wants to be seen, acknowledged, and appreciated. That's why one of the trainings is about deliberately not doing that thing, not doing that constant reinforcement. And a lot of times when people come to Heartwood, it's hard because the training is not to be reinforcing that tendency to need to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be appreciated. And some other people come, and because they feel like I didn't show enough outward seeing of somebody, acknowledging of somebody, or appreciating of somebody, they'll make up the slack and they'll do it, you know. But I recognize that it's feeding something that will be a handicap for people. And because maybe this other person has not overcome that in themselves, out of their own, sometimes neediness, sometimes it's not neediness, sometimes it's out of their own compassion for what they feel someone needs right now, they bump up against the teaching that we're offering, and it creates suffering for people. You know, so if we recognize that we're here to look at our suffering, where we suffer and cause suffering, and work on that while we're here, we can minimize how in our attempts to do good things we still cause other people suffering, or even thwart them at what they need to work on that maybe I didn't recognize that they needed to work on that. You know, so there's a certain level of trust that's required in the Dharma, in the process, and in the place where they have come. And if there's not that trust, you have to feel like you got to protect people because they came to Heartwood, then, you know, that's got to be looked at in one's own mind. Seeing that there's this natural, you know, tendency, that's what the Buddha said, that's our natural tendency. And it takes something to stop it, otherwise we won't see it. We won't see what our natural tendency is because it's naturally the way we incline. it takes something to stop that tendency for it to be able to be seen. You understand what I mean? And so a lot of times we don't get a chance to see something because we didn't run into that wall that made us, oh, what is this? And then we can see it. So it's something really good about going to the uncomfortable places in one who is a true spiritual practitioner, because they want to see, and to see it takes butting up against something, to stop the habitual way of seeing or knowing something. And we can also see that it's true. We think we got like 1,000 things to work on when we start breaking them down in this way, but really, we don't. It's not 1,000 things, It's really only one thing, and that's delusion. And he's broken that already down into 3: greed, hatred, and delusion. And if we just categorized everything as greed, hatred, or delusion, we could see better that it's not all this work that I have to do on myself, and we wouldn't feel so overwhelmed, like, oh, that's greed, oh, that's delusion, oh, that's, and we could, it's like working out a puzzle. What's the word? You have 3 letters of the word. What's the word? Here's the hints. What's the word? You can identify it. And so I'm encouraging you to take this not as a game, because it's serious business, but you can hold it as light as that. They tell us as we're aging, we need to do these games to kind of keep our memory sharp and to make it sharper. And maybe some of us are just doing that for the first time. So my phone, I have about, I don't know, 40 apps. Sister say, you got to clean this up, because there's too many things on there. But I got all these word games, these number games, these puzzles, and even cards, so I can remember which cards fell in each hand, and every time I have a few minutes, y'all be checking messages and Facebook and all that. I'm on a game. But that's what it's for. So we can sharpen our mind in that same way by reviewing continually. Part of mindfulness is sati, to remember, by continually reviewing and contemplating, like, what just happened? Because if we don't understand what just happened, when it happens again, right now, we don't understand it. When it happens in the future, we don't understand it. And so all of that, the future and the past for us, is occurring right now in this momentary conscious mind. So really now is the only time. We only have the present moment. We don't go into the past, and we don't go into the future. All of those thoughts occur right here and right now. And so there's some conclusions we should be coming to now about our constant companion, the mind, who formulates our map of reality. And we can see that any of the mechanisms we use, whether it's devotional practices, whether it's respect practices. I mean, like if you're on a silent retreat, and that's fine, and everybody else is still doing everything that needs to be done so that you can be on your silent retreat, don't have to do anything. The least you can do is when you walk past someone, acknowledge that they exist. If they did it, that's all it takes. You don't even have to talk to them. But to think like, ugh, I'm not talking to anybody, and fail to even acknowledge, it's so disrespectful. You need to just come off a retreat and get to work. And so we can think that there are these things we do out here that seem so holy and seem so righteous and seem so right, but they really aren't. And we don't know that they are not if we don't reflect deeply. if we don't investigate, the Buddha said, if we don't put everything under a microscope and know for ourselves, this leads to my contentment and well-being. This leads to others' contentment and well-being, but not necessarily mine. And this leads to both my contentment and others' contentment. And this leads to neither. We can just put them in those 4 categories. That would have been a good assignment for next week. Okay, so you have your assignment for next week is 118. So I'm going to close out. May you be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm come to you and no danger. May you always be able to meet with the inevitable difficulties of life. And I'd like to encourage you to stay with this study this year. I know we want to get into some deeper texts, and I would like us to, but I remember what the Apostle Paul said. He said, you know, many times I have wanted to go into deep subjects with you, but you were not able to bear it, and you're still not able now. I was talking to Panideepa about a particular topic that I wanted to bring up with the community, and Panideepa looked at me and he said, you know, like, it's not just a matter of a topic, it's a matter of timing. He said, and I don't think this is the time. He said, I don't think this is the time for you to bring it up. He said, yes, it is something that would be useful if the timing is right for people. He said, but for that topic, the time is not right, you know. And so I said, okay, and I set it aside. But so we have to really catch up with the Dharma that we already have, the Dharma that's already in us. You know, we can't pile more on it. We have to catch up to actually be living what we have, and then we can go to something deeper. And the reason that came up is because I'm part of a steering committee for a teachers conference, and one of the committee members said to me the other day, and we really talk frankly. We it's a real good space where we can really, you know, talk and share. And one of them said to me, she said, you know, Paniwadi, you know, you got a lot of students that aren't woke. And I said, I'm sure they're not, you know, but I was wondering why she just said that to me, you know. And then I said, well, I don't know, maybe I can't even figure it out, but maybe I'll ask her, maybe I won't. And I just let it go, and I let it, and then I went home and I told Panideepa, and he said, and how did that make you feel? I said, I don't know. I felt like it was an indictment against me, like I'm not giving them straight teach. I said, if I get any straighter, won't be anybody to listen, you know. And he said, well, then don't worry about it. And I said, oh, I'm not worried about it, but me and a sister gonna have a chat, you know, and I'm not ready to have the chat yet because I'm still staking a claim for like what was the intention of that comment, you know. But I said, well, I know that's true. I said, because I'm out there on Facebook and I read what some all say, you know. But one thing I can say is that I don't pull any punches here. I call a spade, and people do with it what they will. At least I'm not part of a system and an institution that's just not gonna have a conversation. And so so we all have our things to work on, isn't that right? Just carry on and work on it, yeah? May you be well and happy and peaceful, and may no harm come to you and no danger. Always be able to meet the inevitable difficulties of life.